Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodian of the land we meet today and pay my respect to their elder, past and present, and emerging. And I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Then I pay my special respect to all the fallen heroes from Spring Revolution in Myanmar. I would like to thank this man AMI presenter, our special guest, and I appreciate all our participants from different parts of the world for joining the AMI seminar today. Our AMI president, Joe Lubiengo, will open the meeting. Joe, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Um, Welcome, everybody, and welcome to our special guest. I'd like to just introduce our guest very briefly because people have seen the bio on the announcement, but I just want to say that the guest will be anonymous for the presentation and describes themselves as an interested person in aspects of post-1962 Burmese history. The basis of the presentation is linked to the January 27 talk by Nicholas Coppel about the sham elections of 2025-2026. And our presenter tonight is going to go back and trace the sequence of elections all the way back, and in particular, stretching back to the one-party elections of the Burmese Socialist Party and lay the groundwork for understanding the situation today. Before I invite them to speak, I just want to remind you of two things. Firstly, that please, at any point during the presentation, when a question occurs to you, or whether it's for clarification or as a question of substance, put it in the chat. I'll read it and then I'll be able to sequence the questions. So please do that at any time they occur to you. And secondly, I just want to say before, in case it escapes me later on, that we have two more organized presentations already. On the 30th of March, we're very privileged to have a presentation of some young people from the Rohingya refugee camp in Cox's Bazar, and they'll be led by Murshid Alam, and they'll be speaking about life in the camps, what it's like, and their aspirations. And I think that will be a very important session. So I invite you to note that date, 30th of March. And then on the 27th of April, we will have Chan Chan from the Democratic Voice of Burma Peacock Festival, and she will show one or possibly two short documentary films. I've seen the ones and they're really fantastic. And she will then speak to them about the kind of filmmaking that they represent and the impact that they have on people's spirit behind the lines. So those two are fixed, and we'll be announcing the others. So at this point, I'd like to invite our special guest who will be showing a PowerPoint presentation, and Meije will get that going, to address us, just to remind you to put your questions into the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, for the introduction. Can you hear me now?
Perfectly.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Yeah. Can you put the PowerPoints now, please?
Yes, it's
I'll
coming.
host the Kanali now.
Yes.
Kanali now. Kanali.
Yes, yes.
Oops.
Yes, that's the title. So it is, yes, next, please. It is for the past-oriented. It is, as stated in the synopsis, it is past-oriented. Next, please. Now, the previous fake transfer power and fake elections. Next. Next, please. Two statements. One is by William Faulkner in 1951. The past is not dead, it is not even past. And the second is by George Santayana in 1905. Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. I'll try to make the linkages with these statements. Next, please. Next. Now, statements from the past. As some of you may well know, Burma, Myanmar has had three constitutions. The first constitution was 1947, and there was a temporary transfer of power to General Ne Win by UNU on 27 October 1958. Elections, multi-party elections were to be held within 6 months, but Ne Win said that that was not enough. It needs another 1 year to prepare for the elections. And in a statement made to Parliament, the then Parliament, in February of 1959, General Ne Win, the caretaker prime minister, said that he will defend with his life the 1947 constitution. The source that I made is by Chemong Utong in one of his Burmese writings. Utong said that he heard with his own ears and saw with his own eyes what Ne Win said. Okay, next. This is, jump a little bit, this is in 1971 in the Dinjane by one Atauto Laong, another sycophant journalist. It is in a private newspaper, and he said that 1962 takeover was made because the country will, if not split into pieces, it will split into two. That's what Ne Win said after 1959, February, that was on 28 June 1971, the first party congress. So this is the excerpt from the Dinjane, that is the private journal, weekly newspaper. Next. On this thing I cannot find, on 1 March 1966, in a speech in Chagasang grounds on what is called Peasants' Day, it is still celebrated. Since 1964, the day of the 2 March 1962 takeover is celebrated as Peasants' Day. And he said that we took over reluctantly. That he said it a few times, reluctantly. And we will transfer power to the people. That was a speech made on 1 March 1966. It was translated in full, I think, in the next issue of Guardian, now defunct Guardian newspaper, and the Working People's Daily on 2 March 1966. Next, please. The sycophant editorial in the Guardian of 2 March, I cannot, that was a typo, not 1996, it should be 1966. 1966. I saw it on while visiting the library, I saw it on 1 February 2025, and I was angry when I read the editorial. The editorial says that it is double significance because it is the day of the takeover and Ne Win promised to transfer power. In the Star Wars movie, there's a thing that may the force be with you. To be very, very diplomatic, I would like to say, may the force not be with them, with the sycophant editors. They are all dead now, but not all dead people are good. Next, please. This is again on the drafting of the first constitution. So he promised in 1966 that he will transfer power to the people. Who is the people? the people, I think Louis XIV was more honest. He said, La État et moi, with my broken French. That means the state, that's me. He said he will transfer power to the people, and it took 8 years to make the transfer. This is the so-called drafting of the Constitution, 1974 Constitution. Next, please. In the Hantawadi newspaper. And Hantawadi Uwinteng, who was jailed by the SLOC SPDC, but he was also a sycophant. As early as 1969 October, his underlings in the Mandalay-based Hantawadi newspaper wrote that one-party system is the best. He quoted a leader from Africa, I don't know which country. As early as 1969, up until the Hantawadi closed in 1978, Uwinteng wrote, or at least his underlings wrote, many sycophant editorials that they have forgotten. Now, 1971, in order to transfer people, General Sun Yu, as chairman of the what would become 1974 Constitution, and he became president later on. Next. Yes, we will transfer power to the people when the Pidu Luto, the People's Congress, start. Again, the sycophant heading in JMO newspaper. Next. Now, the referendum, they say that it was approved over Dr. Mau Mau in his speech of 1 September 1988 says that it is not we who drew the Constitution. Millions of people participated in the drawing of the Constitution. Now, the referendum, what is the choice in the referendum of 1973? The choice is, if the people said no, Revolutionary Council will continue to rule. If the people say yes, Revolutionary Council will transfer to the so-called people's representatives in the Pidu Luto, and it will be a transfer of power from chairman of the Revolutionary Council, Une Win, to President Une Win later on. The approval rate was 90.19. In 2008, it is better, 92.19. Okay. So I will compare two more referendums, one from Australia just before the 1973 referendum, 8 December 1973. Next, please. Next. Now, the editorial, some of you who have been to Burma may know, there are two English language newspapers, The Guardian, Rangoon, and The Walking People's Daily. I don't know why whether it is deliberate. The Guardian is much more sycophantic than the more socialist sounding WPD. The WPD did not have a banner headline. And the sycophant Guardian editors had a red banner headline. I have never seen any red in capital letters. New state constitution adopted. It was adopted on 3 January 1974, and it was announced on 4 January 1974. Next, please. On 2 March 1974, Ne Win, in a radio live broadcast, announced to the applause of the so-called people's representative the abolition of the Revolutionary Council. It was no longer necessary. Next. Now, there was a gap. Technically speaking, there was no head of state. Technically speaking, it doesn't matter. Between 2 March 1974, 11 a.m. until sometime on 4th March 1974, because the Revolutionary Council is abolished. There was no head of state for about 36 hours, but it doesn't matter anyway. But on 4 March 1974, Ne Win was elected as the first president of the Socialist Republic of the Union of Burma. And it took 8 years to transfer the power to himself. Next. Next, please. Now, on the 8th of December 1973, during the Whitlam government, there was a referendum. I don't want to say on what issue, you can check. And 56% of those voting voted no. It was Whitlam referendum was comprehensively defeated. Next. In February of 1974, Whitlam became the first president to visit Burma after the first foreign head of government to visit Burma after the success of the Ne Win referendum. And I recall Whitlam diplomatically or almost hypocritically praising Ne Win that I had a referendum and I lost, or at least I don't get the results you got. Okay, next. Now, okay, you say Australia is an advanced democracy compared to Burma anyway. So why don't you compare with other authoritarian regimes? Chile. On the 5th October 1988, there was a Chilean referendum on Pinochet rule, whether you want Pinochet to rule until for 5 years or how many years from 1990 on. The opposition was able to address the nation for the no vote on radio and television in Chile. There was no such thing in Burma, Myanmar in 1974 referendum, 1973 referendum, 2008 referendum, no such thing. And nearly 60% voted no for Chile. Time magazine wrote, adios Pinochet. Next. Now, very recently, just 15 days ago, there was a Thai referendum on 8 February 2026. It is not for a new constitution whether a new constitution should be adopted. Now, only 65%. Unbelievable. They did not approve the constitution, nor whether there was a new constitution needed, 65%. Compared to Australia, compared to Chile, compared to neighboring Thailand, they don't have two fake referendums of 1973 and 2008. We are very unlucky. Now, let me give a dig to Professor Robert Taylor. In his 650-page biography of Ne Win, he said that Burma did not have atrocities committed like in Indonesia in 1965-67, like in Cambodia in 1973-75. Should we be eternally grateful to the big daddy Ne Win for that? Why don't Robert Taylor compared with North Korea? Of course, we are, I suppose. We have to be grateful for small, but not as bad as North Korea, I suppose. Next. There is only one candidate and one party was nominated and all get elected. I voted no in the referendum. It was not counted before that. There were about 20% students later on voted no. And I did not vote for the 74 elections. I protested. But in the 78 elections, they come and ask us to vote. I voted no to all 4 candidates. I don't know who their name are. It doesn't matter. They got elected anyway. Is there such a only in places like North Korea? Maybe there is such elections. Maybe in China. Maybe in Vietnam. Next. These were 4 elections. Now, there were no protests. Not only there were, now there are protests, or at least not only by Western countries, by even ASEAN countries like Malaysia, who don't send vote observers to the election. Only Russia and Belarus and maybe India sent that. Now, why were there no expression of concern? I am not defending what happened in 2025. Not only there were no expressions of concern of these elections, I know it is internal affairs, but why were they now? Of course, it is 50 years ago, the situation changed, one can say. Now, not only that, Nehru as president visited India, Pakistan, I don't know, Bangladesh in 1974 April. In 1974 May, he visited Australia. And he met again with Whitlam. I think he was given a 19 or 21 gun salute in Canberra. Now, the current leaders, and including the one who succeeded, the one who is reading now 93-year-old Tan Shui, cannot officially visit Australia or the United States or England. They may secretly visit. Nehru secretly visited, unofficially visited United States in 1987. I didn't know about that. It was not in the newspaper. Reagan, and I hate him even more now, gave him a golf club and phoned him to welcome him to the United States. Did he phone Marcos when Marcos was overthrown in February 1986 and came back to Hawaii? I don't know whether he phoned or not. So there was praise, there was recognition of these fake elections. Next. Now, history not repeating itself, but rhymes. Of course, there were one-party elections. You can say that the elections in People's Republic of China, Socialist Republic of Vietnam, but not Cambodia. Cambodia, after the 1991 peace accords, there were multi-party elections. Of course, Hun Sen, some would say Hun Sen cheated, but even Hun Sen initially at least expressed some concern after the 2021 takeover. And even Indonesia, and Taylor said that nothing like Indonesia in 65, 67, and Khmer Rouge, Cambodia, Democratic Kampuchea in 75, 78 did not happen. So we should be grateful, he at least implied. Now, it rhymes. I will talk later, a little later about alliance, because there will be transfer of power also very soon in April maybe. The same person will become president, I'm sure, or he will be chairman of the what you call consultative committee of 5 to 7% he will become. So there will be another fake transfer of power, but it is a so-called multi-party election. So it's not repeat itself, but it rhymes. No, next. Next, please. Now the quotations, history repeats itself first as tragedy and second as farce. I don't think that is that much relevant. It is both as farce and farce and farce and farce. F-A-R-C-E, farce, I mean, not the four-letter word. That was stated by Karl Marx in 1852. Next. But this is attributed to Mark Twain, but some say that it is apocryphal. It is not. It may not be a real quote. As usual, diverging myself, there is a quote apparently by Einstein sometime in 1930 that Buddhism will become a cosmic religion. My friend in Mandalay, Mr. Tin Lai, he had a Burmese translation of that apparent quote by Einstein in a poster in his living room. Later on, he removed it because I checked the web and there is uncertainty whether Einstein really said that or not. Now, the quote attributed to Mark Twain, I don't know whether he said it or not, but it is probably apocryphal, but quite perceptive. Next, please. Now, briefly, because Professor Nicholas Coppel has talked about 2025, so I'll not discuss about 2025. Now there is the 1990 election was cancelled. So it is not fully, it's a multi-party democracy election. That's the word, exact word they use. Multi-party democracy general elections. Next. I have mentioned, and I remember reading in the Burmese language, Lukta Pidu Nezem. I have not searched it again, but I read it from abroad on the Armed Forces Day speech. The then Chairman Senior General Somang said in Burmese that after the election, we will transfer power to the elected people, representative, and we will return to the barracks. He did say that. It was in the government newspaper of 28 March 1989 in Burmese language. I don't know whether there's an English translation in the New Light of Myanmar at that time or not. Next. But after the election, Somao himself, there is some praise about Somao that he promised, but he himself did not keep the promise. He said that we say that it is only to draw a constitution. Then it should be Constituent Assembly elections, not multi-party democracy elections. But there are those who endorse this canard, C-A-N-E-R-D, canard. Next, this deception. Next. Yes, in the April 1947 election, it is mentioned as Constituent Assembly elections to those who will draw up the 1947 Constitution. Next. Derek Tonkin, a former British ambassador, and the late Michael Antwain, history teacher, echo the slog SPDC line. I was angry when I read Michael Antwain's book and the son, Maitri Antwain's book, History of Myanmar, since ancient times. They said that the people rejoiced after the 1962 coup. There was no resistance. That is true. The student union issued a statement, TAU, the student union, the leftist student union, issued a statement protesting the revolutionary government. Yes, but there was no rejoicing. He said he rejoiced, and Michael Antwain was more Ne-Win than Ne-Win. Ne-Win himself did not openly state that Burma gained independence only in 1962, though he inferred that in terms of economic independence. But Antwain in 1987 says that Burma obtained independence only in 1962. Ne-Win, he is more white than the white, more Malay than the Malay, more Ne-Win than Ne-Win. Next. Now, if they were drafting for the constitution, why only 15% of the elected representatives? NLD was only 10% in the drafting process, which took 14 years to adopt the new constitution. And it is same. Ne-Win's 74 constitution took 2.5 years. Every day, every bloody day, there is intense propaganda of transferring people, how many million of people participated, and Robert Taylor also in the state in Myanmar quoted verbatim that figures. Next. Oh, this is past. They are spilled milk. I recall reading in Somerset Maugham of Human Bondage that you cannot cry over spilled milk because everything in the universe is bent on spilling it. But the problem with Burmese politics is the split milk has been split again and again and again and again and again and again. Next, please. Almost finished now, I think. Now, I have to end in a cliche. Barack Obama wrote a book, The Audacity of Hope, first published in 2014. As far as Myanmar and even America, because now to diverge one more time, it's not here in the PowerPoints. a Professor Andrew Harding, who has also taken interest in Burmese politics. He had a podcast, in effect, saying that Malaysia is now more democratic than the United States, because it says that the Malaysian Supreme Court has gone against thing. There's more independent. Right now, people will say the tariff decision, it is only a charade. It's not important. At least not as important as giving Trump the immunity. And I said to an Australian academic in ANU, Professor Alan, I forgot the last name, and I said that with some qualifications, what Professor Andrew Harding said about Malaysia and America is correct. He said there is no qualification. He said that, an Australian said that Malaysia is more democratic now, and most Americans may not like it, or some, I should say, rather than most. Now, as far as both United States and Myanmar is concerned, should it be the futility of hope? Next. Another book, more realistic, is by Australian jurist Julia Stone, Of Law and Nations Between Power, Politics and Human Hopes. That is why Ne Win got 1921 gun salute when he visited Australia. He even visited unofficially United States. Can these successors, except with the exception of President Thein Sein, the reformer, but I did not believe in him when he said that in English, partly in English, good government, clean governance on March 31, 2008, he addressed. I was not optimistic at that time. Even at that, I'm an incurable pessimist regarding both Burmese and now American politics. He said that it is between power, politics, and human hopes. That is a realistic description of international affairs in 1974. It is also true in now, in 2026. The last slide, I think, next. But to conclude, not with an entirely pessimistic note, I quote, even though with some reluctance, like Ne Win reluctantly take over, but he achieved a lot. Taylor, one more dig to Taylor. I know he may not be here. The last chapter of Taylor's book is titled Failure and Farewell. It should be Success and Continuation, because his authoritarian, totalitarian, or at least dictatorial tendency continues. So as far as failure is concerned, of course, we don't become like Cambodia, we don't become like North Korea, we don't become like Indonesia in 65, 67, which Taylor mentioned at least once, if not twice, in his book. But since 1965, the deterioration in judicial independence, the deterioration in economy, Ne Win himself admitted that we have problems, and I am responsible partly, not only Brigadier Timpe in a speech in 1965. So the failure was, though not complete failure like in Cambodia or as Indonesia, was already there. But personally, the title should be Success and Continuation, not Failure and Farewell. Okay, I will end now with Alexander Pope, Hope Springs Eternal in the Human Breast. Thank you very much. It was in 1833 he made that statement. I don't know whether it is relevant in 2026, Myanmar, United States, and other international politics. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, special guest. I appreciate the coverage and the care and the intensity of your expression. Thank you very much indeed. You've obviously observed all this very closely. We have one question in chat, which I'll read now, but I encourage others to post your questions there. The question, can you hear me, special guest? The question is...
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. I can hear you.
How would you define Ne Win? Is he a military dictator, an opportunist, self-centered, narcissistic person, or all of the above, or anything else?
Partly all of the above in small or big portions. I would say he is one of the luckiest dictator. Now, compared to Marcos, I will take Marcos 100 times, 99 times, if not 100 times out of 100. Because Marcos won democratic elections in 1965. There was no cheating. At least even the opposition party did not. He declared martial law in 1962. He was overthrown in 1986. And all the biographies of Marcos, I've not read any of them, but from the title, about 5 or 6, America's Boy. Now, Marcos, I don't know whether he was able to visit People's Republic of China, but Nevena visited China officially many times, and United States officially during Johnson administration, after he said that he will transfer power in 1966 September, and in 1987 April he visited unofficially. It was not in the Burmese language. Reagan sent him a present. So he is one of the luckiest dictator, and he lived a long life. I don't accept that he is not lucky. He lived a long life. The longest, if I can briefly compare, the longest despot, as far as I know, in post-World War II era, longest lived in terms of life is Robert Mugabe. He died at 94. And second is Alfredo Stroessner of Paraguay. He died at 1993 plus, and Nevin died at 92, basically. So I think to answer, it is partly all of the above. Yes, he was no Pol Pot, so I can agree that. But he is not achieved like Park Chung-hee. Park Chung-hee was partly a dictator, but he was skilled, and he raised South Korea into an economic powerhouse, at least in East Asia. Nevin impoverished the country. So yes, all of the above in parts, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you for that reply. Are there other questions, please? Then I would like to ask one.
Thank you.
I think the predictions about the potential of Burma shortly after independence, a lot of it focused around the rice bowl concept,
Yes.
and um, and I think if I'm remembering correctly that um, the universities were regarded as the best, the most promising universities other than Peradeniya in Sri Lanka or Ceylon within
Yes.
the British colonial era. What other, I'm just wondering, are you familiar with any forecasts? Everyone seems to quote Lee Kuan Yew as someone who predicted well. Do you know what he would have said or his views about Burma in that immediate post-colonial period?
I think I have seen on Facebook quite a few aspects. I think they are exaggerated that Singapore was so poor. They showed some mud houses, and I don't think that was the case. And I have read, I don't know whether this is true or not, Lee Kuan Yew saying in 1957 or 58 or 59 that we will catch up with Burma within 5 years. It doesn't take 5. It took, if he said it in 1959 or 60, in 1962, 63, the black market. Ne Win, biographer Mong Mong and Taylor barely mentioned that. The
I see.
black market economy. It only mentioned Ne Win's speeches, his visit abroad in that regard. So I don't know. And Taylor rebutted in a, sorry, I'm mentioning Professor Taylor. He doesn't have the chance to rebut. I'm sure he's not in the audience. That it is not true that Burma was rich, comparatively rich. He showed some statistics that it is pre-1962, it was not that rich. But pre-1962, according to Silverstein and others, that was not that bad, if not prosperous. And I've heard that Rangoon University was one of the top in Southeast Asia and even in Asia. I don't know whether it is true or not. Probably it is true, but it has deteriorated very, very much. That is in Ne Win's time. That was in Ne Win's time. And why am I, this one chap, Mr. Minh Tan, he is another pro-Ne Win. He has been in Australia for 50 years now. And there is some, sorry, I diverge a bit, some issue, if not of guilt, of awareness, those expatriate scholars, because they live so long abroad, like Michael Antwin, they have to be very anti-colonial. They have to be very anti-West. And it is in the West, Antwin in America, and Minh Tan, sorry, he's not well known as Antwin maybe, in Australia, because he wrote mainly in Burmese. He wrote occasionally in English also. They have this sense of guilt or awareness, and they try to compensate by mouthing anti-West, anti-British, in a sense, I would say anti-colonialist rhetoric, basically. And sorry, to answer your question, it is probably true, and I will partly accept Robert Taylor's statement that Burma was not that rich. I remember, though, that in a seminar in Singapore, one Singaporean, Indian Singaporean, I forgot his name, said that in 1948, there were 3 countries which have been promised to develop economically. One is Sri Lanka, Ceylon.
Yes.
Second is Philippines. Third is Burma. But since the late 70s, it is South Korea, it is Taiwan, it is Japan, who have, Burma had very advanced economically. Politically, of course, South Korea was authoritarian, but not as authoritarian as Ne Win. I will say that again. Not as authoritarian as Ne Win. There are shades of differences. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
I should have clarified the first question was from Tete. Thank you to him. Christopher Lamb asked this question: were the 2025 sham elections the first to have official international observers? And he's wondering whether those ones came from Russia and Belarus. Were there others? So that's a question. I might ask 2 questions so that you could answer them together, because they're connected. David Kamru, I believe, is in Paris. After the December 2025, January 26 sham elections, what are your expectations? Are we in for another 20 years before a new democratic dawn? So the first one from Chris about the observers, were there any, and were they only from Russia and Belarus? And the second one about your forecast for the next period of time from David Cameron.
Okay, let me answer the first question first. I think from what I've seen, it is only Belarus and Russia. I don't know about India. I don't know whether India, I don't know. But definitely from what I have read, ASEAN refused to send any observer. But there were no observers in the one-party election. I'm not defending. And there were observers in the cancelled 2020 elections. I don't know about 1990. There were observers in the 2015 elections, international observers, not only Russia and Belarus. So that is, I think, the answer. Second, I want to quote Einstein again. Apparently, this may be a real quote rather than Buddhism as a cosmic religion. From what I searched, Einstein said, "I never think of the future. It comes soon enough." The same question was asked, very similar question, was asked of UN Secretary General Guterres when soon after 2021 February 1 coup on CNA, I think, Channel News Asia in Singapore. What if it continues another 10 years? I don't think most of us will be dead. Let's face the reality in 20 years' time, but I am a pessimist. I'm a pessimist, almost incurable pessimist as far as Burmese affairs. And I have hope that I will be disappointed in my pessimism, but it rarely has. It rarely has. So I think he will become president. No need to mention him, or the chair of the Consultative Council, and it will go ahead. Australia, United States, India, Britain, even EU will continue to have diplomatic representations. No one recognized NUG. No one recognized the national unity, and now they are split again. I have no hopes with the so-called opposition either. I have had hopes with Aung San Suu Kyi, and to be frank, yes, she is under extreme constraints. I understand that, but I was also disappointed. I don't know. There may or may not be minimum 10% chance. No, sorry, minimum 5%, maximum 15% chance that for sure they may release, but it is unlikely. As far as the immediate future is concerned, I don't know what will happen. So I dare not predict what is the future, but I am not optimistic at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, special guest. We've got two more questions. I'll read them together. Heinte Cho, Newin's BSPP regime had some, I can't really read that word, something ideology, even if it was non-dogmatic syncretism. I can see USDP is part of an international alliance called Forum of Supporters of the Struggle Against Modern Practices of Neocolonialism for the Freedom of Nations, now along with the Chinese Communist Party, Vietnamese Communist Party, North Korea Workers' Party, and so on. And the question is, do you think USDP would equip themselves with a similar ideology like campist anti-imperialism and anti-Western ideology?
I think there is a unholy alliance, or I should not say, sort of anomalous relationship between BSPP and the former BSPP and USDP. At least those past the age of 70s, like even the former chairman Shui Man and even Thein Sein, were members of the BSPP when it was the sole political party. And I don't know the NUP contested the election and how many seats they get. There is a change thing in the ring. The irony is that, I would not say irony, anomaly, is that the both anti-communist and anti-West rhetoric is probably more in anti-colonial or anti-West rhetoric is probably more sharp in the SPDC, SLORC period than in the thing. There a good relationship between United States and Burma compared to now. Of course, there is an embassy here, about quite close, nearby, and so I think there is a slight change in the rhetoric. The anti-West is probably even more pronounced in one sense, but interestingly, USDP sent, I don't know about 2024 election of Trump, but USDP definitely sent a letter of congratulations to Trump, the great anti-communist and the despicable evil, if I can use that term, when Trump got elected. I don't think BSPP sent, or Newin for that matter, sent a congratulation letter to, say, Nixon when he got elected in 68 or when he got elected and re-elected in 74. But Newin did meet Nixon in 1985 when Nixon visited Burma for the second time. The first visit was in 1953. So to answer, I don't know whether I have fully answered the question. I think USDP will use similar but not identical rhetoric like BSPP, and it will be the same period. I don't know whether any flexibility can be done with one independent. From what I read, one independent got elected out of 430, basically. Now, I think, sorry, I do not fully 100% understand the thrust of the question, but I did understand part of it. So I hope I've answered it. Thank you.
Yes, I might ask
Anyway.
the questioner, did you want to clarify, or do you feel like the question has been answered? No. Okay. There is another question. It's related to Chris's questions from Kit Andrews, and it's about the international observers to the last elections now, the sham elections, whether the observers were actually prevented from attending or were they invited? Do you know? Can you throw any light on that?
I do not know. I rarely read the newspapers because, especially the Burmese language newspaper, because I got agitated when I see the propaganda. Even during feudal times in late 1870s, when Burmese newspaper were there, I have seen part of a few pages of the Burmese language newspaper. It is not as sycophantic, sorry to use that word again, as the current newspapers, most of them since 1966 and 1962, most of them, not all of them. As I said, working people's daily have more independence, or at least write bolder editorials, less sycophantic editorials than the Guardian English language newspaper in that regard. So I don't know whether the electors, sorry, I misspoke, observers were personally there. And I have read sometime in the Global New Light of Myanmar that they said that it's very fair election, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. I don't think they were prevented, but they cannot be in all places of the observer. Unlike the 2015 and 20 elections, of course, not all observers can be present in every polling place, but in quite a few, more than now, and also from United States, even Jimmy Carter's, I don't know what, the foundation sent some. Maybe his grandson even came in 2015 or 2020. So there was no such thing like that. And I think a few, only mainly from Russia and Belarus were there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I just want to clarify that the questioner about the ideology has stated that he feels you answered the question. Then there's two others. I'll ask this Raymond Tintway's question because Chris Lamb's question is really about international observers, but I'll mention it, which we've discussed, but I'll mention something about that in a minute. Raymond is asking, is it going to be the repetition of militarism as the whole administrative structure be dominated by military officers on special duties, just like Ne Win's regime during the caretaker government period? Does it mean that militarism will again dominate the country for another several decades after the new civilian government has been formed under Min Aung Hlaing? Did you
Yes.
get that? Yes.
Unfortunately, yes. I don't want to think in terms of decades, but yes, in 1962, when Ne Win took over, who would have guessed it will go on for decades, a few decades? Who would have guessed? Time magazine wrote that Burma is for some period of something to that effect. The title was Deteriorating Situation in March 19, because that was what Ne Win said about the deteriorating. So unfortunately, my pessimistic, or is it realistic answer is yes, militarism will come. Not again, it has never reduced, it's only a reduce. I was very angry about after 2015. I don't know, I have somewhere on my computers, one foreign observer wrote, stupidly I should say, the end of militarism in Burma or in Myanmar. That was in post 2016. That was stupid of him, of him or her. I can't remember the author. It is not, and at best it could be the slight reduction. This now it becomes full. Even the 2016 to 2021 January NLD government, I would say is not even half. It is 1/4. Not the army is 1/4. NLD is 1/4 because all the permanent secretaries in all the ministries before the so-called transfer of power in 2016 is being placed, and they have 3-4 months to prepare for that. So yes, I think I agree with the question. The militarism will continue. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We've come to the end of our time. Your input has been extremely interesting and important. Special guest. Wish you well. Thank you very much for taking the time to make the presentation. Thank you to all participants. Before I close, I just want to remind people that our next seminar will be on the 30th of March, and we'll be joined by some young people from young Rohingya from the Cox's Bazar refugee camp who'll be reflecting on their lives there. And we appreciate their participation. They'll be led by Murshid Alam. And then on the 27th of April, Chanti, sorry, from the DVB, Democratic Voice of Burma, Peacock Film Festival, will be showing some short movies within the presentation time that we have and then discussing them. So I look forward to seeing you on the 30th of March. Good wishes, everybody, and thank you again to the special guest.